In the year 2027, a deadly virus swept across the Earth, unleashing chaos and destruction in its wake. People fell ill in the streets, their skin turning pale and their eyes sunk. Hospitals and clinics became overrun with patients, and medical staff worked tirelessly to treat the infected, but to no avail. As the virus spread, governments scrambled to contain the outbreak. Soldiers patrolled the streets, enforcing strict quarantine measures and forcing those who showed symptoms into isolation. The air was thick with the sound of gunfire as panicked citizens clashed with the military in their desperation to escape the infected areas. The once bustling cities were now silent, their streets deserted as people fled or succumbed to the virus. Abandoned cars littered the roads, and buildings stood in ruins, their windows shattered and their walls crumbling. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the only sound was the mournful wailing of sirens in the distance. As the weeks turned into months, the virus continued to spread unabated. Eventually, the two nations emerged as the dominant powers, locked in a bitter struggle for control over the virus. Their efforts to eradicate the contagion only made matters worse, as they resorted to brutal tactics such as mass executions of those infected. As the world teetered on the brink of collapse, beset by war, food shortages, and a relentless wave of new viral mutations, governments began to turn on their own people, killing those deemed expendable. The ensuing riots and uprisings led to the Third World War, which raged on for years. The streets were littered with rubble, broken glass, and debris as buildings smoldered in the distance. The sound of gunfire echoed through the cities, accompanied by the wails of those who had lost everything. Hope 2877. Page 4. People huddled in groups, trying to find shelter from the chaos, while others fought fiercely for survival, armed with nothing but their own desperation. The once vibrant and bustling cities were now ghost towns, with no signs of life except for the occasional stray dog or rat scurrying through the rubble. The skies were choked with smoke, casting an eerie orange glow over everything, and the air was thick with the stench of decay and death. It was a world turned upside down, a nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape. By 2060, the war had ended not because of peace treaties, but because humanity had unwittingly destroyed the Earth's gravitational field with 22 nuclear bombs. The result was an unstable, inhospitable world where only 50,000 people remained alive, clustered in two cities, Believers and Survive Land. In 2040, while the rest of the world plunged into chaos, the people of Survive Land built an incredible defense system, including a force field that protected them from the harmful effects of nuclear blasts. They erected a massive wall around their city and developed astonishing technologies, thanks to the intelligence of their citizens. However, those outside of Survive Land saw them as a threat and formed a new religion, Believers, which aimed to destroy the city and return the world to normal. The people of Believers lived outside the walls, eking out a meager existence and teaching their children to kill and steal. But their true goal was always to tear down Survive Land, a goal that they knew was nearly impossible to achieve. The Believers, with their dark clothing and somber expressions, stood on one side of the great chasm that separated them from the colorful and lively Survive Land. The air was thick with tension as the two groups glared at each other from across the divide. On one side, there was a bleak and barren wasteland. On the other, there was a vibrant and bustling city where the people of Survive Land worked tirelessly to create a new world for themselves and future generations. Despite the distance between them, the sounds of conflict could still be heard, the Believers' angry shouts and Survive Land's defiant calls to arms. The two sides were like oil and water, unable to mix or find common ground. And yet, as the people of Survive Land looked across the divide, they knew that they could not allow the Believers to destroy their way of life. They would stand firm, united in their resolve to defend their home, no matter the cost. The Earth remained in a post-apocalyptic state 817 years after the war had ended. The effects of the 33 nuclear bombs, coupled with the massive tectonic shifts that had occurred causing massive earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis that ravaged the land and made it even more inhospitable. Half of the planet had been shattered, and day by day, the broken fragments were flying into space, further destabilizing the planet's gravity. The weather cycles had gone haywire, with unpredictable and often violent storms ravaging the land. The once lush rainforests had disappeared, replaced by endless deserts that stretched as far as the eye could see. The animals were nowhere to be seen, either extinct or hiding in some unknown refuge. The nuclear bombs that were detonated during the war caused a chain reaction that resulted in the depletion of the ozone layer. As a result, the Earth's surface is constantly bombarded by intense UV radiation, making it impossible. For most plant and animal life to survive. People who are unable to find shelter from the sun's rays eventually succumb to radiation sickness. The believers, the ones responsible for the war, suffered greatly. Their numbers dwindled day by day, and they had to fight for every scrap of food and water. But they deserved it, for they were the ones who had brought about the chaos in the first place. They refused to work together, preferring to act like savages, fighting amongst themselves for resources. In time, the survived land discovered a way to protect themselves from the harmful rays of the sun. They built a shield around their communities, creating a safe haven where they could live without fear of radiation. But while this shield protected them from the worst effects of the post-apocalyptic world, it also had unintended consequences. The shield blocked out the sun's rays, which meant that the reproduction of the people was terribly slow. Without the sun's energy, people found it difficult to have children, and those that did often had genetic abnormalities or other health problems. As a result, the population remained stagnant, with only a few new people born each year. On the other hand, the people of survival land were safe, protected by their shields that kept out the harmful rays of the sun. But they too were selfish, too concerned with their own survival to think about restoring the Earth. And so, despite their technological prowess and resources, they remained stagnant, unable to overcome the damage that had been done. As the years passed, it became clear that the Earth would never fully recover from the devastation. The damage was simply too great, and the planet was too far gone. And so, the survivors were left to eke out a meager existence in a world that would forever remain scarred by the events of the past.